All right, welcome to A Taste of the Beach. I'm Dan Lipton of Beach Cities Media and publisher of Travel Host Beach Cities Magazine and soon to be premiering travel host of Orange County Magazine, and your host for this weekly podcast that showcases the best places to dine, shop, play, and stay along the coast here in Southern California. And we love sharing these places with our viewers so you too can enjoy a taste of the beach. So the next few shows will continue to deal with the topic of transformative businesses during the pandemic. Last week's show was with Carl Dean of Michael's Restaurant Group that transformed Michael's Downtown Kitchen, which is literally across the street from our guest place today, into a wonderful Italian market. And this week I'm visiting with Simon Haxton. He's the master distiller at Portuguese Bend Distillery, Long Beach's first distillery located on the promenade, as mentioned, in downtown Long Beach. So welcome to A Taste of the Beach, Simon.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
You bet, you bet. Well, first off, how are you and your family holding up during these unprecedented times?
Well, I'm a little lucky in that regard. It's just me, so I don't really have to quarantine myself from anybody. I've been Zooming with my family out in Maine and in Denver and Portland, so that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, so far we've been keeping ourselves pretty busy. Been here at the distillery every day making hand sanitizer. We're still open for carry out cocktails and food. So we've slowed down a lot, but we're keeping ourselves busy.
I bet you are, which is exactly why we're chatting today. But first, I want to give our viewers some background. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, kind of where you're from and what brought you on the interest of distilling?
Sure. So I moved to California in about 2003. The company that I worked for as an aerospace engineer moved me out here. Left in December of last year. Been working on this project for about 5. Louis Navarro and his wife Brenda Rivera been planning this project for about 5 years. Opened up in June, and I thought I'll support this and then work for a couple of years, but it just became, you know how it is when you start your own business, it eventually overtook everything. So basically left my work and then came here, and now I'm here full time. And of course, 2 months after that, the COVID-19 crisis hit, and we switched gears and started talking about, well, how are we going to stay open? And then about a week after that, we just got swarmed with a bunch of requests for hand sanitizer because evidently everybody was out. So the conversation went.
We're going to go into that in great detail. So I'm curious, does your aerospace engineering background have anything to do with either your knowledge in this, your ability to do this?
Right.
I'm curious about the connection.
Well, there's about 4 scientific disciplines involved in distilling. So there's the thermodynamics of distilling itself. There's the organic chemistry of turning starch and grain into sugars for yeast, and there's the microbiology. And then when you're passing different liquids from one production to another, you've got the fluid dynamics, So there's a lot of deep science knowledge that's required for this job. But fortunately for me, it's not all science. It's also very creative. So there's a lot of room for expressing yourself artistically that you don't normally get from pure engineering. So that's the joy that I have transitioning into this career, is that I get to apply a lot of my scientific knowledge, but then I also get to play within different areas of creativity, try things out, and hey, if it doesn't work, you can try something else or try again. In engineering, when you're building satellites, if you make a mistake, it's a $600 million to $1 billion mistake, and there's not a lot of tolerance for trial and error. Here, it's a lot different, and sometimes you make happy mistakes that actually work out, and then that turns into a great product that's never been seen before. So, that aspect of the business is what I really got into this for.
Well, I could tell you, Simon, if you put on a NASA shirt instead of what you're wearing,
yeah,
opened up the the ceiling there, you could tell a different story and say that those two things behind you are rockets
Yeah,
that,
right.
that you're going to launch, and half the people or more would not be able to argue what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and it's very encouraging to see. There's a lot of NASA T-shirts. Speaking of the NASA T-shirts, there's a lot of folks walking around with those things on now. So hopefully, this race to Mars has revived the passion that this country's had for space exploration in general. It's really exciting to see. Even though I'm not in the business as a career anymore, I still consult and work a lot with a lot of those guys. So I'll always have a great passion for that. And manned space is hopefully on the horizon again soon. So we'll see that coming up. And yeah, and being in Southern California, it's a large industry here. So
Absolutely.
it's fun to see a lot of the guys from the industry come in and with their family and buy alcohol. And
yeah, especially right here in Long Beach, up by Long Beach Airport is becoming like the space exploration headquarters.
Right? Yeah, Virgin Galactic still has a presence here. I think they moved their headquarters elsewhere, but they still have a presence here. I know some guys from back in the day that work there now. And you know, we still in the metropolitan area, you know, there's still Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing. There's still a lot of good companies here, and they're still bringing the best and brightest to the area. So, you know, a lot of them I still see because they live here in Long Beach. So yeah. And they used to make the C-17s
Long Beach
here.
was built on it, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the shipyards and the aircraft, and McDonnell Douglas was here down in Huntington Beach. Yeah, it's a long history of that industry here, and it's well, I know it's what brought me here, and it's not, you know, it's not the only reason why I'm here. They're going to have to drag me out with chains and a team of horses if they ever want me to leave the state again. But yeah, no, it's great. And, you know, the universities that are here have built a brain trust. So, yeah.
Well, so I'm going to get a little parched as we go, and I just thought that you'd like to see what I poured myself today.
That looks like a Donna Rosa cocktail there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a little Donna Rosa and tonic with a squeeze.
Excellent. Well, thanks for representing. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll get into that in a minute. So I would be remiss, though, if you didn't tell our viewers about your business partners at Portuguese Bend Distillery and the other locations that are kind of in the group, just real quickly. So.
Sure. So Louis and Brenda own 3 other restaurants through a different company, Navarro Hospitality. The first one that they opened was Lola's on 4th. They opened that with their mother, and she passed away a little over 5 years ago, but they've kept the tradition going and opened up a second location in Bixby Knolls. And so those are their flagship restaurants. And then they also own another restaurant, which is an Americana cafe called The Socialist. That's also on 4th Street. Known those guys for over 10 years, and very lucky and proud to have them as partners here on this project. If you're looking for people who know the restaurant business here in Long Beach, you couldn't ask for a more knowledgeable group of people.
Absolutely. And I tell anyone who will listen that I'm not sure that I've ever met a nicer person than Louis. And I'm not taking anything away from Brenda, right? Because Brenda's very sweet. But there's something about Louis and that infectious smile.
Right.
That is just, right? It's kind of captivating, right? I mean, he's.
Right. Yeah, he definitely has charisma, and he's also the type of guy who will sit and talk to somebody for hours on end, no matter how busy he is. So no matter how much stuff he's got to do, he's always got time to talk to people on the street. People walk up to him all the time. Yeah, it's just, there's some type of charisma about that guy.
No, there's no question. So how did you? I know you said you've known them for about 10 years. How did the concept of Portuguese Bend Distillery come about?
Well, Louis and I used to go on walks together to get exercise and just kind of, catch up with one another. We're both pretty busy guys. And about 6 years ago, a friend of ours was talking about opening up a brewery. And he was like, hey, what do you think? We know plenty of brewers. Should we, we're looking kind of for a new concept. What about a brew pub? And I was like, well, to be perfectly honest with you, bud, they're kind of tapped out. The market's kind of saturated. If you start to look at where they are, by the time that we open up in 3 or 4 years, you're going to start to see folks falling out of the market. But you know what hasn't been done is a distillery. And he's like, well, who do you know that knows how to distill? And I was like, this guy right here. He's like, oh, okay. So after a year or so of convincing, and you know how small businesses are, they're very hands-on. They had 3 restaurants running already, and so it took a lot of planning and laying out the details to get to the point where they were comfortable taking on another venture. But once we started, all the pieces started falling in place. We found a great location in downtown, right off the promenade. Tony Shoshani and the group here that own the streets in City Place were very welcoming. Michael Bond from Studio 111, the architecture place that's our neighbors, they reached out to us and were almost adamant that we had to come downtown to open up this concept. But once we looked at it, a lot of no-brainer decisions came in place. And yep, there it is right there. It's right on the corner. We had a nice bent facade, so it went great with the name, which is named after a smuggling cove here just north of Palos Verdes. And yeah, we got it. Also brought on a couple of other great guys, Josh Johnson and Jim Leatherman, who we knew from the Port, which is a small business right off of 4th Street. Great marketing minds, fantastic talent when it comes to branding. So once we had all those essential pieces in place, everything kind of just clicked and we started moving. Took a little while to get the first distillery open in Long Beach. Just as with anything, you're basically laying the track for everybody else. So, us educating ourselves on what the city needed, educating the city what we needed, took a really long time. So we missed a couple of opening dates, but eventually last year in June, we finally got it all together, got our permits, and we were up and running. So, and ever since then, it's just been phenomenal. The city of Long Beach has welcomed us with open arms, and we couldn't have asked for more support from a community. It's been fantastic.
Sure. Would you elaborate just a little bit more on the name?
Sure. So Portuguese Bend is the name of a historic area. It's now a nature reserve. But back in the mid 1800s, it was a fishing cove and whaling cove for a lot of the Portuguese that came here. But around Prohibition, that started to take on another use, which was a place to hide alcohol and smuggle it into LA and the San Diego area, the metropolitan area. So all the speakeasies in LA where, like Humphrey Bogart, Norm Bacall were drinking, you see all those nice black and white shots from back in the 30s and 40s. Well, chances are the alcohol that they were drinking made its way through the port by sneaking big boxes to Terminal Island off of the boats, and then little speedboats like the one we have hanging up in our dining room were used to hurry up, get them into Portuguese Bend, hide them into the cove, and then they'd take off before the police showed up. And then once the coast was clear, they'd come back, fill up the trucks, and ship them up to LA. They even made a makeshift landing strip right there at the bluff, so they could come in with a little Cessna, throw everything on the ship or throw everything on the airplane and take off before the Coast Guard or the FBI could show up. But there were, so it's a nice little piece of history for not a lot of people know. Most people just think of Long Beach that was dry during Prohibition, but in reality, it played a big part in illicit alcohol. FBI and gangsters having shootouts there down by the cove. So we thought that was an opportunity for us to kind of tie Long Beach's history into what we were trying to do. And also it made sense for us because we're trying to revitalize we're trying to be a part of the California craft spirit movement, because prior to Prohibition, there were thousands of craft distilleries, little mom and pop shops that specialized in specific types of alcohol. And when Prohibition came in, the big guys were able to survive, but the little guys left, and you missed out on all these very delicious cocktails and different types of spirits that just weren't available anymore. And up until the 1980s, you didn't really see a lot of craft distilleries. In the 90s, you start to see the craft beer movement.
Right?
Period. Yeah. For the most part, you know, you'll have your big brand whiskeys, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, etc. But you know, you didn't see a lot of other ones, and so now you see Saint Germain and a lot of these other folks are reinvigorating the local craft spirit movement here in California, and we just are stoked to be a part of it.
You know, it just occurred to me too, and maybe this was planned that way, or it just happened to work out. So I'm looking at this picture right here of your place, and it's Portuguese Bend, and you bend around the corner.
That's right. Yeah, it's a nice little happy accident. So we came in, and we were originally looking at a larger space further down the promenade. But with all the construction that's going on here, there's a lot of high rises that are going in. They're putting in one for the graduate housing for Cal State. And, you know, we're like, well, maybe you don't want to move into this space. It's going to be, you know, under construction for a long time. So we looked at the smaller space, and as soon as we saw the facade, it matched the name. And yeah, it worked out great. So
Yeah. So, you know, I think you know this, our viewers, of course, don't, that my wife and I are pre-launch club members. I don't know what the technical term is for what we're
moonlighting
called.
members. Yeah.
What's
You're
that?
part of our moonlighters.
Moonlighters, right. And so we've had a blast enjoying, you know, your early success. And, you know, obviously nobody could have predicted what's going on, you know, right now. And most recently we had a great dinner party for 8 at the boss's table, where your assistant distiller, remind me of her name.
Oh, Rihanna?
Rihanna, yes. Taught us all about the process at the table, and we got to sample.
Right. One of the major elements of this business is educating folks on spirits in the process. It's the same thing kind of with the craft beer movement. Back in the 90s, when I was younger, before I started my aerospace engineering career, I managed a couple of brew pubs in Milwaukee, and the thing that was most important for us was educating folks on the different types of beer, because at that time, most people didn't know anything past Bud Light, Miller, Coors, and when people were starting to get accustomed to porters and stouts and different types of ales, you learn to appreciate beer a lot more. And a lot of folks have said, well, I don't really like beer. Well, maybe you don't like a certain type of beer. So that's kind of our approach to spirits. Most people, you know, we started out with vodka and gin because they don't have to be aged. And a lot of folks came in.
Simon, you're leading into my next question, which is great. Let's keep going. So we'll do show and tell. As mentioned, I'm a big fan. Not every bottle here is open, because I told you the last time I saw you that I have this push and pull thing of loving to drink it, but I don't want to open these 001 bottles, you know.
Right.
These are the original batch. So you start. What's the first thing you want to tell us about your product? Which one?
So we have two types of gins. We'll talk about the gins first. So we have two types of gins. One's a California style gin, which is a New World gin. That's the pink gin. Yep, that's the one right there. Oh no, that's the Smoke Bay. That's a traditional London dry, and that's the Donna Rosa. So that's pink for a reason. That's not a traditional tasting gin. It's very floral, a little bit lighter. It still has a very pronounced juniper flavor, but it's a lot lighter. So when folks come to the restaurant and they say, well, I don't really like gin. Oh, okay. Well, let me steer you towards the Donna Rosa, because there's a lot of great cocktails, Aviations, Satan's Whiskers, a lot of traditional craft cocktails that plays off very nicely. And we have some modestly tweaked versions of those cocktails, and people really gravitate towards it.
And the color comes from
hibiscus. So we infuse it here with hibiscus, organic hibiscus flowers, and then that's what gives it its pink color. So it has a mild flavor to it, but that's not where the flavor comes from. It's mostly just for coloring. And then the traditional gin is very juniper forward, but it's still a high quality gin. It's great for martinis and tonics. And it has a lot of different botanicals, grains of paradise, kubev, angelica root, violet root. So it has more of a traditional gin that was made, you know, by the English and the Dutch when gin was first arrived. And
Okay.
then we do also make a couple of vodkas. Our breakwater line also includes that's our traditional breakwater. That's our cocktail vodka. So that's made particularly for cocktails and for mixing. And we also have a premium, which is what was just announced this month that we won a silver medal at the American Distillers Institute competition. Unfortunately, we weren't able to go to the gala where they do those announcements, so they had to pass on the medals online. But they finally announced that back in April, and now we're able to share that information with the world. So we're pretty proud about that.
Congratulations, and that appears to be the one hole in my my bar here, as I don't have that one yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. If you don't have one, we'll make more. We always make more. And that one is not going into distribution. We're going to have that here strictly for the folks here in Long Beach. So that,
Oh,
that
okay,
vodka
good.
can only be bought through our bottle shop.
Wonderful. Okay. And then most recently, you launched a
Our
couple of.
rums. That's right. So we have a white rum, which is great for tiki cocktails, and we'll be starting a Tropical Tuesday program here at the restaurant. So that'll feature a lot of our those rum cocktails will feature that rum right there. And then we also have a spiced rum, which is made from whole spices, no chemicals, no additives. And it's also great for cocktails. Some people like to sip it. I've found a lot of folks really like making Cuba Libres out of that because it has a very nice warming spice, which complements the cola. So if you have your favorite cola, like an Inca Golden Cola or something like that, you want to make a premium Cuba Libre, then that's the rum you want to make that with.
I don't know. I just tend to gravitate to, if there's anything that I can put a lime into with it,
Right.
that's kind of me. So that sounds perfect. Okay, getting a little more, serious now and getting in towards this transformative process. If I'd like you to take a step back for a moment and think about that feeling within yourself and in the organization when COVID-19 first became an issue, and how
Right.
you all dealt with the decisions that you had to make as Governor Newsom was, creating more and more, and with no disrespect to the government, barriers for the hospitality industry to really do what they do. And I'm wondering, just kind of what went through your minds.
Well, first started passing inquiries into the mayor's office and saying, hey, how is Long Beach going to respond? And our immediate thoughts were with our employees. Obviously, almost 80% of our staff is front of the house, in the hospitality portion. And we racked our brains on how we could keep them safe, but still keep some type of business going. And there just weren't, every day there were less and less options available. And then eventually we knew that the best course of action was to have them furloughed, shut down the dining room. We had those in place. So we had those plans in place well before they announced social distancing and the fact that they were shutting down public spaces, just because, the health of our customers and the health of our employees came first. But it was a very, very tough decision to furlough 30-some people. Our director of hospitality, Sonia, who works here at Portuguese Bend, had to call those folks, and it took a big toll. She was, those phone calls took her about an hour worth of calling people, and then when she was done, she went in the bathroom and cried for a good 15, 20 minutes. It was heart-wrenching because when we opened, we had so many talented, very motivated people come in and apply, and we were able to, hire some of the best folks that were available. And when we brought them on, it was just amazing how strong they were and how much they loved working here. And it was really tough. But the first thing that we thought is, well, how can we help them with their, benefits, walk them through that. We had some things that we passed out, make sure that they could apply for their unemployment, let them know that this was just a furlough. And as soon as we were available to open up again, we would reach out and bring them back. We helped them look for some jobs elsewhere. Some folks got some work, working at Costco and some of the other grocery stores, and they were able to continue to keep working elsewhere. But yeah, then our next thought was, well, how are we going to pay rent? How are we going to pay bills? So, you know, fortunately, we have a really good relationship with our landlord, Tony Shoshani, and we're able to work out some deals where we were able to defer some of our bills, you know, and we worked out some deals with some of our suppliers. But this has hit everybody really, really hard. I don't think there hasn't been a business that's not been touched or has been immune from the downturn. And you know, right now we're keeping our restaurant open for takeout orders. We're bringing in the folks that are able to work and giving them as many hours as we can possibly afford. And then we thought about making hand sanitizer, and that's just a completely different story. That as soon as we started doing that, the phone started ringing off the hook, and we all thought about it and said, well, you know, how are we going to keep ourselves open? Turned into, well, how are we going to keep ourselves open and then do what we can to help meet the demand for the hand sanitizer that's just not there? I mean, at first we just thought, oh, well, people aren't able to find it at the grocery store, so let's just make some little bottles and pass them out with our food. Then we got phone calls from, you know, the utilities, from hospitals, from first responders, from police departments, the post office, and the enormity of the shortage became apparent. So we reached out to our friends at Trademark Brewing, Sterling and a lot of stuff, and said, hey, can you guys help us out? If we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it on a large scale. We're a very much small micro distillery. We make about 150 cases of alcohol a week, but we were looking at doubling or maybe even tripling that and still not being able to meet all the calls we were making. So they opened their doors and said, of course, we're here to help. Anything that we can do. They freed up some fermenters. We're able to produce the wash that we distill to make the alcohol. And so now we're able to, you know, create a decent amount of hand sanitizer, some hospice, nursing homes, and nursing staff that haven't been able to get it through normal channels. But we've also gotten some folks that have reached out to us and said, hey, we hear what you're doing. We want to volunteer to help you guys spread this around. So SoCal Honda has offered to come and pick up bottles in the 3-county area. And they've been able to drop off to some assisted living and other types of places where they just can't get away and come and pick it up from here. So even though this has been a large struggle for us from a business perspective, we feel very blessed to be able to support the community and to help people who need it the most and keep the economy running, keep the utility guys out there working so they can keep the lights on, you know, and the gas companies so they can go and work on the lines and help people who's, you know, need service. So, you know, and I actually had one of the folks call from PIH with tears in her eyes. She's like, you don't know how hard it's been. We've been looking for the past 3 weeks and we can't find hand sanitizer. We're so glad that you guys are doing it. And then there are other distilleries that are doing this as well. Blinking Owl in Orange County have been producing large amounts. R6 up near the LA area, Los Angeles Distillery. A lot of small businesses have heeded the call. And we're just proud to be a part of that community. Discus is another company. Distillery.org is their website, and they've created a map for the entire United States of all the distilleries who have converted from making beverage alcohol to hand sanitizer. So you know, it's definitely been almost like a wartime situation where people have done what they can to pitch in, and we all know whatever we can do to put a dent in this crisis is going to help slow down the spread and then eventually, hopefully, shorten the amount of time that we're all out of commission.
That's amazing, amazing. How did you met? It sounded like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but companies reached out to you. How did they know that you were converting at that time?
Well, the word slowly got out. We didn't really promote the fact that we were doing it. However, we did get some interest from a couple of media lines. I think one of the first ones to reach out to us was the Press Telegram, and then the Long Beach Post, and then eventually LA Times on what we were doing as a larger story. And I think the word of mouth just got out there. Um, and eventually, yeah, we just started getting emails and phone calls from every direction.
If people want to buy product, you mentioned distillery.org.
Distillery.org. It's the Distillers Society in the Discus is the name of the company. They're the Distillers Conference here in the United States, and they have members from East Coast to West Coast, somewhere upwards of 300, 400 distilleries, and it's just a professional organization where, hey, looking for this piece of equipment, you know, who have you guys had good experiences with, et cetera, et cetera. And it turned into kind of like a telephone tree for folks who are looking for different types of raw ingredients. Like one of the main ingredients, well, obviously besides alcohol, which is more than 80%, there's also hydrogen peroxide and glycerin, and that's not stuff we normally buy. So people are like, hey, where are you getting this? Where are you getting that? You know, sharing different suppliers. And then they said, well, let's, you know, this is really something. This is turning into a pretty big problem. Let's try to help people find that. So they started a COVID-19 newsletter and offered to send out information on the web for distilleries that were making hand sanitizer. And that quickly became a thing. And I went on, and it went from maybe 50 to 500 overnight. So if folks are looking for hand sanitizer outside of the Long Beach area or outside of Southern California, because we have gotten calls from Chicago, Boston, different places, there are distilleries probably in your area creating hand sanitizer. And we would suggest, we would encourage you to reach out to folks that are local to you, just because there's no sense in trying to ship this stuff across the country when you have somebody right next door. And for us, we had to make the tough decision of not actually selling it to the public directly. For most people who are staying at home, working from home, you have ready access to soap and water, which is the most effective way to keep yourself safe. The hand sanitizer, majority of the use is for folks who are out in the field, who are working on the power lines, who are making kits for COVID testing, or working in pop-up locations for healthcare. Those folks need the hand sanitizer. So we had to make the hard decision of saying, well, we're going to shut down sales. We're still giving it away with food in our to-go orders and pickups and delivery. But the majority of the product is going out to the folks who need it the most.
Sure.
So we've been asking for...
Unfortunately, Simon, in the hysteria of all this, every bottle of hand sanitizer in a retail location has been gobbled up along with the toilet paper.
Right. And that I think it's compounded the problem. The fact that people are hoarding is definitely a problem. But I think most people aren't doing it for nefarious reasons. They're just saying, oh, well, I'm doing everything I can to keep my family healthy and safe. So I'm going to go out and get that hand sanitizer. I'm going to buy a gallon. It may last me 3 or 4 months, but you know, that's not going to be one more thing I've got to worry about. And unfortunately, you know, some of these hospitals are using 20, 30, 50 gallons a day, 50 gallons a week. And, you know, we need to be able to make sure that we're supplying it to them. Once we took care of that first tier of criticality, then we started working on some of the communications companies and utilities who were critical need with the first responders. And then once we were sure that we had enough to support them and we had ramped up our capacity, we started looking at construction companies that were working on essential businesses. And then, you know, obviously the hospitals got the word out to the nursing homes and hospices. So we've been having people come in and grab, you know, 3 to 5 gallons a week. And we've just tried to keep, and everybody's been very disciplined about how much they take on. We've asked everybody to pick up just what they need for a week and not to panic. We'll continue to make hand sanitizer and just come back, and when we can, we'll reuse the containers, because we do have hydrogen peroxide in the formula. And so that helps make sure that the containers stay sterile.
Right.
So it's been very encouraging to see people kind of rally together, and we haven't heard a lot of pushback on our stance. A lot of people have been very understanding. Say, we understand. I'll take 3 bottles now and come back when we need more. So
Well,
yeah,
kudos.
I think even though you hear about the folks that are hoarding and trying to make money and the price gouging, for the most part, the communities understood the situation that we're all in and are doing their part.
Well, kudos to you and your team and our friends up at Trademark Brewing over at Anaheim and Long Beach Boulevard, one of the newer breweries in the city, for stepping up. And the good in all of this is always watching how America rallies around a cause and makes those necessary adjustments in crisis to help not just themselves, but the people around them. And, I just want to, thank you for that. I do want to, though, just ask one other question from you and just kind of get your feeling about this. And that is, how do you see, I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but how do you see the recovery rolling out in our industry?
Well, I think from a business perspective, you have to look at worst case scenarios first and prepare for those. I think we'll probably see some type of recovery once the social distancing is gone. We're all anticipating probably getting some permission to reopen, but at half capacity, maintaining physical distancing while people are in the dining area. And that's going to be difficult. There's probably going to be a need for testing to make sure the folks that are coming to the distillery aren't sick. And that responsibility is going to be very hard to meet. I think there's going to be some third-party services that are probably come in great demand for that. Also think that the recovery is going to be kind of an uphill battle. I don't think we're going to see a full recovery, probably not even this year. If it is earliest in November, probably next spring, simply because, it's not just us that are being, hit economically, it's the folks at home. And so if they don't have money to spend, and we're not going to recover very quickly either. We're very tied into the community. The community is our backbone. So it's going to take, I think, it's unfortunate that the service industry will probably be one of the last industries to recover, especially in the light that it was the first one hit and the first one hit very hard. So we're encouraging everyone to go out and order food from, our neighbors, the Ordinary, Fourth Horseman, a lot of the restaurants downtown on 4th Street, anywhere in your neighborhood. Just keep those folks in mind, and to the level that you can, please reach out and patronize them as much as you can, because it's going to be a long road back to normalcy, I think. We're all looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'd like to just add, for those who are not aware, that especially when you're local to the places that you're ordering from, you would do an even greater service to the place you're ordering from if you placed the order directly to the restaurant and asked them if they deliver directly themselves or go pick it up, because there's a good chunk of profit that's taken away by the delivery services. And it's just helpful that if you can go pick it up or they deliver directly, that would help the restaurants even more.
That's right. And especially from some of the smaller places, they've been making connections with smaller delivery systems. I know we have a bike service here called Maritime Couriers, and they've been slashing their fees considerably. So if you have the option, pick up. If you can't pick up, use a local delivery service if you can. And I agree with you, Dan. That's going to help out the restaurants the most.
Okay, so Simon, we're going to just switch gears just for a moment. I'd like to end the show on a lighter note. Okay, so I'm going to call this our light. I'm going to call this our lightning round of questions. This has nothing to do with anything that we've talked about. Okay?
Okay.
More like the first things that come to your mind. Okay? All
Okay.
right.
And I can testify that we did not pre-coordinate this at all.
That's right. That's absolutely
Go
right.
with it.
So here we go. Question number one. You and I are going to go car shopping, and money is no object. What are you going to get?
I am going to get the Tesla Model Y. I'm a big
Is it-
electric car driver,
Yeah.
so
Is that the
that's
Y the new one?
the Y is the one that's coming out, the crossover. Yeah. So I
Oh,
drive a Model 3 right now, so it's the smaller SUV crossover.
right.
Yeah.
I'm a
I
big
actually
fan.
have seen a
Big
what's
fan
that?
of the.
Yeah, and it's California. They hire a lot of folks here locally, so yeah, I'm a big fan of the Tesla. I own an '82 Toyota Cruiser as well. I don't drive that one as much, just take it up north to go camping. But yeah, anything electric with a little bit of pick me up, a little sporty car. That's what I'm gonna go. That's what I'm gonna go find. And I don't need to spend a lot of money on that car. That's the great thing about that brand is, you know, for $60,000-$70,000, you're really getting your money's worth, and it pays itself off in, you know, 5 years from not having to buy gas, especially here in Southern California. That's a blessing.
You bet. And if memory serves, the gentleman who started that company has an affiliation with the aerospace industry.
Yeah, they're starting out and doing micro satellites, and he's got SpaceX going, which is one of the first companies to offer spacelift from a commercial business model. So really smart guy, thinking outside of the box. 50 years wants to send people to Mars, and I believe he's going to do it.
Second question, if you could be the best in the world at something other than what you do now, what would that be?
Right now, my answer's got to be naps.
Sorry?
I'm pretty exhausted. Naps. Taking
Oh,
naps.
take it.
Yeah, we've been working 24 hours a day here, and we've had some, me and the crew have had some pretty long days. So if anything I could be better at or the best in the world at, it's definitely got to be taking naps.
Amen, brother. Question three. Choose two food items that would be part of your last meal.
Part of my last meal. Are they ingredients to food, or can they be prepared food?
No, they're prepared food, right?
Okay, well, right now I am addicted to the vegan pizza at Fourth Horseman. It's called the Alchemy. It's got Korean hot sauce as the sauce, pickled vegetables, and a vegan sausage that they put on it. It is amazing, and they only sell it by the pizza, but I've been able to eat a whole one all by myself. So
All right, well,
yeah, that's got to be on the list.
I got to call Ryan and Martin and get myself one of those vegan pizzas.
You got to. You absolutely got to. I can't believe that it's not more popular. I don't know if they're trying to keep it to themselves or what, but it's amazing. And then I guess the second thing would have to be, well, the thing that I've been eating since we've been shut down and no restaurants are open is the cornbread at Gusto Bakery. It's a little bakery. They're opening up a new location on 4th Street, and I can't wait for this to be over so they can open up and start making more bread. But their cornbread is out of this world. It's like another level. They make these little loaves about this size, and they're great for chili, beans, anything that you'd be making at home in batches when you're doing prepping meals. Oh, it's so good. I don't know how they do it. And I'm sure they wouldn't show me how, but it's amazing. Those are the two things I would say that are on the top of my list right now.
Did you say Gusto Bakery?
Gusto, yeah, Gusto, or Gusto.
All right, put that on my list. Okay, and what favorite adult beverage are you going to consume with it?
With the pizza, wow, that one's a tough one. I would have to say with that one, I would buy a craft cocktail kit from Portuguese Bend for the Yes Please, because it covers the waterfront. It's got our California pink gin in it. It's got grapefruit, so it's refreshing. It's got a little bit of orgeat, so it has like a sweetness to it. And then we put a little bit of IPA float on top of it. So you get kind of everything, you know, a little bit of everything in that cocktail. And it's amazing, and it goes great with pizza. It's a great summer cocktail. So if you're sequestered to your own backyard and you're trying to give yourself like a little patio party, that would be the ideal adult beverage for me.
What is it called, Simon?
The Yas, please.
Oh, yes.
Y-A-A-S.
I've had it. I've had it, yes. Yes, please.
Yes, I've had it.
And last question. So you're going to vacation somewhere you haven't been. Where are you going?
Probably Peru. It's been on the list for a while. I was thinking about maybe going to Southeast Asia and touring Cambodia, but maybe that one's going to have to wait. So, but yeah, I would love to go to Peru, Machu Picchu, and maybe Patagonia. But Peru's where they make pisco, and I'm definitely a fan of that. So I think that's probably where I'm going to go. Either that or Mexico City in Condesa. I can't get back there enough. That's a great place to also vacation.
Well, Simon, I want to thank you so much for your time and all the things that you and your team are doing. Just please make sure to give my warmest regards to Louis and Brenda.
Absolutely.
When you talk to them. And again, thank you for the partnership and keep up the great work. Thank
you. And thanks for the opportunity to sit down and chat with you guys. It's been great.
Appreciate it. Have a good weekend, sir. Get some rest.
You too. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.